I think lots of people expected Birmingham City to dominate League One this season. And in terms of form for the Blues, that's kind of how it's played out. Although, while they're top of the league on points per game, something Wycombe Wanderers will be familiar with, Wycombe Wanderers this time are the ones that lead on points alone, with Birmingham City having one point fewer, but having played one game fewer as well. So Wycombe Wanderers have had a great start under Matt Bloomfield. Can they keep key personnel in place for the second half of the season? What about Huddersfield, bubbling under the radar nicely under Michael Duff? Can Wrexham continue their exceptional home form? And what about other outsiders? Can Stockport County possibly come into the automatic promotion equation after winning the League Two title last season? And is it just those 5 teams in contention, or is there anybody else that could come into it? Because, of course, we're still yet to reach the halfway point of the season. Plenty to discuss then on this League One podcast. Yes, welcome along to this League One podcast. You can do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify, because that would help us out an awful lot. Delighted to be joined by my co-host for the evening, Ed Walker, a Burton Albion supporter, hoping he'll have some sort of association with League One.
I appreciated you saying it's not even halfway yet. That's kind of raised the mood a bit, Gab. So we'll take that.
Well, you've done it before, The Great Escape, haven't you?
That's true.
Hasselbank and Marmara. Ed, we're here to talk about the League One promotion race. Mm-hmm. Are we talking about 5 teams that have a realistic chance of finishing in the top 2? Is it fewer than 5? Is it more than 5? What would you, if you had to put a number on it now?
My gut instinct's 4.
Okay.
I see the argument with Stockport. I still think they look a top 6 side to me, not necessarily a top 2 one. Mm-hmm. I'm just not quite sure on the defensive makeup is strong enough to maintain the standards shown by some of those other sides in there. I'll be very happy. I think Stockport will be absolutely delighted with top 6. I think I said it at the start of the season, so I'm patting myself on the back about that. I think I was one of the few who had that idea of them going for it. I mean, I kind of sums it up to me really that I think they put, I can't remember, they put 5 past now, but they did it at moments after getting beaten 5-0 by Wycombe. They beat Bolton 5-0 just after losing 5-0 to Wycombe. And that kind of sums up where they are for me. And I think I'd be quite satisfied they were to earn a playoff place. I think we're looking at 4. My instinct still is, I just pictured the idea that Wrexham and Stockport always finish side by side on the table. So I'm kind of thinking Wrexham drop to 4th and end up there, which again for them would be great because they were League 2 last year. So my instinct is 4 at the moment. And you kind of raised the point in your intro there, I think, where we got a Birmingham side we probably think are going to take the summit ultimately end. Wycombe look fantastic. And Huddersfield certainly want to keep an eye on looking over their shoulder. They need to be looking over their shoulder towards the Terriers who are looking quite decent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me with Huddersfield, it's Michael Duff, given, just how much faith I have in him as a manager at this level. Because if you look at some of the other teams that we've talked about, okay, Phil Parkinson has won promotion from this level before with Wrexham. So that's a tick in his box. But you would also say the other managers, even Chris Davis at Birmingham, I'm a massive fan of the job that he's done so far. Still unproven.
I'll ask you this, Gab, and I hope I can ask because it's Blue Nose. Do you think this is Davis that's done this? Or do you think there could have been... Do you think, say, if that Birmingham squad went to other managers in this League One lineup, do you think they could also have Blues in the position they're currently in? That's what I'm wondering. Because I feel like my opinion with Chris Davis is I'm expecting promotion this year, and my opinion, Chris Davis is really going to fall next year when they're in the Championship, and they're not so much the financial juggernaut compared to most of the other leagues. So I'm a little bit hesitant to say I love him at the minute. I'm just wondering how you feel if this is really because of him or partly because of what's been brought in personnel-wise.
Yeah, what a great question. I think it's right to judge him if we get into the Championship next season, because that's where the disparity levels out a bit more. And I think we'll get a clearer idea of how good Chris Davis really is. So I think that's absolutely valid. At the same time, I don't necessarily subscribe to the view that anyone could have done this, because how many times have we seen teams have an enormous budget and blow it on the wrong sort of ideas and the wrong people? I think that I like his ideas. I like the fact that he's been able to implement a style of play on this team straight away, right from the get-go. I think that shows good coaching qualities.
I do remember pre-season in particular, that was really noticeable from Blues discourse, just how impressed they were with how impressive and clearly structured that team looked.
Exactly. And also, I've seen clips of Chris Davis, and you can't tell everything from sort of these 30-second snippets, but when he's speaking to the team, it looks like he commands that authority. So whereas, some number two figures who have a great reputation in coaching circles might struggle to be that authority figure, I don't think Chris Davis does. So I do have a lot of confidence in him, and I'm really excited to see what he can build with us. But if I can just
I'm kind of curious because it kind of feels the Blues want to do an Ipswich, is my picture in my head of what they want here. And the idea is McKenna is designed hopefully in that mold of Davis. And I feel like this season will answer that for us. A lot to be next year, but I'm pleased all the same. You feel like this is something that feels like a good fit and not just a one-off for next year and he's in trouble by this time next season.
I think he's got enormous potential. I think setting the bar at back-to-back promotions, it seems very ambitious, even with a club that our resources. It's certainly realistic, but I think let's kind of cool things down a little bit because I think Kieran McKenna is a manager with enormous potential, and so. Yeah, let's just kind of cool that down. But I'm really excited by Chris Davis. I like the way he leads the team. But I think there's other managers. So Dave Challinor hasn't quite done it at this level yet. Whereas Michael Duff, I've got a lot of confidence that he's proven in League One, and he's probably the manager that I have fewest reservations about when it comes to managing at this level, just because I know how good he is.
Yeah, because we've seen it with Barnsley before and the work he did to take Cheltenham up to this level and maintain them there in that first season, definitely. This Challinor point, I kind of always just believed it would. Just there's something about Challinor that just feels like it always felt to me like the reason he had a League One season before is just because he had another chance. He'd just be working his way gradually up the pyramid. His record, I can't remember if I said it now, but he's never finished outside the playoffs in any season in management. That is incredible track record. Promotions with Colwyn Bay, with Fylde, with Hartlepool, with Stockport. He's just an absolute winning machine. And coupled with a Stockport side that have that ambition of the Championship and the finances to really actually get there, it's not a surprise that they're doing what they're saying. And I think Challinor will show his stock's just going to keep rising year on year at the moment with longer stays of the Hatters.
And his Stockport's can keep rising as well.
Very good.
Thank you. So I'm we can be joined by our first guest of the evening now, James Richings from the Bucks Free Press. Good evening, James. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm liking the festive jumper, by the way.
Is that a snowman or is it Rudolph? Can't tell.
It's a snowman.
Okay.
Snowman. Okay. Well, I thought you only wear it one time a year, so why not? So it's
absolutely.
all good. It does light up, but I can't find the switch. So sorry for you guys to disappoint you there. But yes, how are you guys doing? Everything good?
Yeah, we're really well. Great to have you on the podcast, James, for your insight on Wycombe Wanderers. I suppose we'll kind of we'll start with Wycombe on that at the back where there's that defensive pairing of Joe Lowe and Caleb Taylor. I can't imagine they're losing too many aerial duels at the moment.
No, honestly, whenever I interview them, I feel like I need to stand on a stool or something. Honestly, they are absolute. They're so tall, and they're not going to lose many battles. They're really, really not. Last week at Shrewsbury, you can just see how they dominated in the air. And albeit, Shrewsbury defensively were very poor. Wycombe won 4-1, but from the attacking sense, they did have one or two opportunities, but they swept them up so well. And they've been scoring a few goals recently as well, which has been great. Obviously, Taylor scored last week his first goal for the club, and Joe Lowe, I think he scored 3 in his last away games in the league. So they're a brilliant centre-back partnership, and we can only hope that Caleb Taylor doesn't go back to West Brom on loan. Go get so recalled, because he's been absolutely sensational. He started in every game for Wycombe since he's joined in the league, bar one, which was his debut, and he looks brilliant.
Certainly does. I mean, what I really stands out to me about Wycombe, James, is you've got pairings and combinations in key areas like Lowe and Taylor, like you look at it, Morley, Humphreys and Leahy in midfield. These are players who have got a real understanding with one another. And yet on the flip side of that, you've also got, if you go to the front three, you've also got a lot of depth and the option for Matt Bloomfield to rotate where needed. And that balance between continuity and depth, you seem to have got it spot on this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because there have been times where Wickham, certainly at the start of the season, there were a lot of talks about whether or not the squad depth would be the reason if Wickham didn't get into the playoffs. But so far this season, it's been absolutely fantastic. And funny enough, Matt Bloomfield in his press conference on Tuesday spoke about the squad because with the game against Bolton being tomorrow night, Aaron Morley isn't going to be able to play against his parent club. So he said a lot of work in the summer was due to these incidences where Wickham will sign a player from another League One club, but they will have the backup to not make it that much big of an issue. So yeah, the squad depth at Wickham has been nothing been short sensational, and it's really Wickham are reaping the rewards now, being top of the table at this stage of the season. Matt Bloomfield has got a lot right at the moment, but we are still only in December and the season doesn't finish for another 5 months. So if Wickham want the season to end now, they would 100% go for it. But at the moment, there's still a long way to go. But Wickham are reaping the rewards after a fantastic summer transfer window. And the way Wickham have been playing this season, it's been brilliant to see.
I find it so weird with Wickham actually because they've been top of the table, they've been top for a while, they're the top scorers in the league, and I still feel like people generally don't appreciate them enough. This is really strange. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of prejudice that actually comes to Wickham because people have their previous opinions about them under Ainsworth. I don't think this looks the same quality of football. I think it's a better quality of football generally than what was shown under Ainsworth, and I think particularly the way that Bloomfield has got people like Dan Udoh, Richard Kone, Thredonia Dinma, Bez Labala looking. I'm not sure those are forwards that the promotion hopefully at the start of the year would have said I wanted to get those and have them to try and go to the Championship, but he's making that work all the same. Richard Kone, James, I could ask a silly question, say how many million are you going to sell him for whenever that comes down the line, but just what is that scouting network that's managed to find him? How's that happened? Because he was so low down, what is it, about 12, 18 months ago? Like, how do Wickham just pick up that guy from seemingly out of nowhere?
Well, I think that's a question for Matt Bloomfield to answer, to be honest with you, because Richard Kone had been on the circuit, if you will, for a little while. He'd been in the country for a few years. He obviously had a trial at Colchester, but it didn't work out. So people would have known about him. I don't know how Wickham managed to get hold of him in 2023 because he came in for a few trial games. He actually scored on his trial debut. I remember I was there against Aldershot. He was on the pitch for about maybe 20 seconds, came on and he scored. And we're thinking, right, well, this kid is obviously very good. And lo and behold, he signed in January and he's not looked back. It's incredible to see his rise, and he's just going to get better and better and better. He's already got 11 goals, I think, for the season. And at the start of the campaign, he said his target was 15.
That's certainly on track for that, isn't he?
Very much so. And of course, there's going to be a lot of talk in January whether or not a club's going to come in for him. I mean, we can't be naive and not think about that. But at the moment, he's one of Wickham's main men at the moment because he's not the only one chipping in with goals. I mean, Bez Labala's record this season has been nothing short of sensational. 18 games, 9 goals. He's literally scored in 50% of his matches this season, which is quality. And this is going to be a bit of an odd one. Sam Vokes, he hasn't played since August, but I think he's the only player in League One to have a 100% goal to game ratio, 2 games, 2 goals. So that's what I mean. Wickham at the moment are just doing everything right, and of course, clubs will be looking at Kone in January, and I wouldn't be surprised if bids did come in for him. But as we saw with Anis Mehmeti in January of last year, which will be 2 years ago next month, Wickham didn't want to let him go. But when you're being offered incredible money for a club like Wickham, you got to look into it. But that was the Wickham of old. Wickham are now owned by a billionaire now. Yeah. So,
and yet, despite that, it doesn't feel like you've thrown loads and loads of money at this. There's quite a lot of loanies. I think there were 3 agent deals in there as well. This is quite a cheaply assembled squad that's sitting top of the pile with 43 points. It's remarkable, really.
Because it's not about how much you spend; it's about getting the right player in. I mean, you've seen. I mean, I don't want to cause any beef with Birmingham, but you look at the Jay Stansfield stuff, and I think Kone scored more goals than him, and Kone was playing non-league a year ago.
Careful, you're getting rolled up.
I know. Sorry, Birmingham. I know, Gab, you're a Birmingham fan as well, so I'm so sorry.
Yeah. but I think I'll give you that Richard Kone costs slightly less than Jay Stansfield, and I think I'll concede that one.
But that's the thing, because Wickham, obviously, they Wickham haven't had an academy since 2012, so they really want to try and nurture young talent out there that haven't been seen really, and they want to give them a chance, as we've seen with Richard Kone. So there will be plenty of players will be coming through Wickham's ranks, similar to Kone, and will hopefully have very long and successful careers. But as we've seen, it's not about how much money you spend. It's just about getting the right player in, making sure they're coached correctly, as we've seen so far, and then just working on things they need to improve on. One thing Wickham do very well, and they've done this under Ainsworth, is that you can be the best player in the world, but if your attitude stinks, you're not going to get through the door at Adams Park. Yeah. They'd rather take players who are not proven or in a way have been left to one side. They've got a bit of a point to prove, and they've nurtured them, they've encouraged them, and that's what I mean. That's why
like Gareth McCleary is one of the standout stories with that.
100%. I mean, he was brilliant at Reading. It ended very sad for him. I mean, he could have easily retired, but he came through the doors at Wickham when they were in the Championship, and he's loved by the Wickham fans. And he's 37 years old, and he's still got it. He's still very quick. He can still run up and down that wing. So, yeah, it's not just about the quality of the play; it's about the attitude. And Wickham have signed some brilliant players who have got a fantastic attitude. Dan Udoh being the prime example. Not only is he a lovely guy, but his technique when he strikes the ball is absolutely unreal. I mean, his goal against Shrewsbury last week. I mean,
do you know what, James? I'm delighted for Dan Udoh because I remember Steve Cottrell saying this has been about 3 years ago now that the year before he had a big goal scoring season for Shrewsbury, he was given a new deal partly because of his attitude and because of his application. Where if it wasn't for that, he might not necessarily have got that new deal. So it shows the reward for perseverance and being a good team player.
And that's one of the reasons why Wickham looked at him, not because we all know how good of a footballer he is. I mean, last week, Bloomfield said this in his post-match, and I had never experienced this before. You've got an opposition player that's gone back to his old stomping ground, scored, and then the home fans are singing his name as well with the away fans. It was
that didn't go down that well with some sections of the fan base, I've got to say. Some of them were not that impressed with that.
Honestly, but just being there and hearing it was just very unique, and that's what Dan Udoh brings. He's not only a brilliant footballer, but he's a terrific guy, and that's why Wickham wanted him in the door. And you can just feel when you go to Adams Park, the vibes there are very, very positive. And let's be real here, Wickham are unbeaten in 17 in the league. We know. I mean, if it doesn't happen, then it'll be brilliant. But we all know a defeat is going to happen at some point in the season. I mean, even the most optimistic Wickham fan can agree in the sense that Wickham are more than likely not going to go a whole season losing twice in a 46-game campaign. You never know. It might happen, but the likelihood is it's not going to happen. So we know a defeat is going to happen sooner rather than later. But as we've seen recently, Wickham don't panic now. They really don't. Prior to last week, if you want to look at it from a glass half empty perspective, they'd gone into Shrewsbury winless in 3, a draw at Exeter, a draw at Reading, and a defeat to Swindon in the EFL Trophy. And then you got people thinking, wheels are starting to fall off here. Go to Shrewsbury and they absolutely batter them. So
I'm getting Plymouth vibes from this, Gab. This Wickham story. Just continue being written off by the rest of the league, told they're going to fall away, and then they just don't.
Yeah.
Vibe from them again.
Well, what I wanted to bring up, James, was I think Dan Rice, the new chief football officer and the new owner, Mikel Lontadze, deserves some credit for this because I think it's quite common when there's a new ownership regime for them to have this instinct to sort of rip everything up and bring in their own, bring their own ideas in and sort of really put their own kind of stamp on the club. And that can put existing personnel feeling a little bit apprehensive. But what I really like is that from what I can see from the outside, they've actually made Matt Bloomfield and maybe other people who are already doing a very good job at the club actually feel quite relaxed. Not that they would take their positions for granted, but actually feel like they're supported. And I imagine that that's made a massive difference to what you've been able to achieve so far.
Oh, I mean, obviously I can't speak for Lontadze and Rice, but you like to think that will play a huge factor in it. I mean, when you look at the back, I mean, Wickham's season last season was very unique in the sense that it started well. And then Wycombe, I think, were 8th in October time. And then there was this horrible period where Wycombe didn't win a game for 12 consecutive matches in the league. Some of the games they played terribly. Some of the games they were very unfortunate not to win. And any other manager, you would have thought thinking, okay, they're going to get the bullet. And there was a period around a year ago where there was genuine talks of Matt Bloomfield potentially getting the sack. That was just through the fans, nothing to do with the club. And then January came along, and the transfer business that Wycombe did in January was brilliant. That's when Kone came in. That's when Labala came in. That's when Matt Butcher came in. And they really, really played their part. And at the back end of the season, Wycombe were on a really, really good run. They only lost twice from the start of March to the end of the season in the league. And both those sides, I mean, one of them was Portsmouth, who ended up winning the league as champions. And I'm pretty sure Barnsley did. I think that Barnsley got into the playoffs last season.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they did.
So, 2 home defeats where Wycombe were in it for most of it isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. And the way Wycombe were playing was very, very good. So probably Lomtabsi and Rice came in and thought, well, maybe we don't want to change manager. You can see there's a good thing going. It's just utilising what players are out there to add to what's already a very good squad and then just take it to the next level. And that's what's happening at the moment. So, yeah, it's all about the right people at the right time, because I also believe as well, if Matt Bloomfield didn't have the links that he has with Wycombe, being a player there for over 19 years, being a coach there for a few months as well, I think that if he was someone that came into the club as manager and they went on that run, he probably would have been given the boot.
Yeah.
But as he is literally known as Mr. Wycombe, played over 500 games, part of Wycombe's history since 2003, I think that was on his side. And look now, Wycombe, we're not even talking about what happened a year ago. We're just talking about the future. I mean, Bolton tomorrow is going to be a brilliant game because it's going to be Wycombe's one of the highest attended games of the season for Wycombe. It's under the lights just before Christmas. It's going to be a real party atmosphere because the vibes around Adams Park are just so positive. And even if there is a little hiccup, it's okay. We pick ourselves up and we go to the next game. So yeah, at this present moment in time, everyone associated with Wycombe is absolutely loving life, and rightly so.
Absolutely. January, James, what's that going to look like in terms of incomings and outgoings, do you think?
Well, I think the 2 biggest things for me would be keeping hold of Caleb Taylor and Aaron Morley. Those are the 2 biggest assets that Wycombe need to keep. And let's just say they don't keep them. Matt Bloomfield, in my opinion, he would know who he's going to get in to replace them. I think that's what's been really key with Wycombe's recruitment, is that they know if someone does go, they probably have a list of potential replacements about who can come in, who isn't going to come in. And I think that's really, really helped. I mean, the recruitment at Wycombe since January has been nothing short of sensational. Honestly, the players are getting in. I mean, Cameron Humphreys on loan from Ipswich. I mean, to me, that is in itself an incredible achievement, considering that Ipswich just been promoted to the Premier League. He could have easily stayed, but he wanted to play a few more games, and he's gone to Wycombe, and he's been nothing short of sensational. Here's a stat for you. His last league defeat was actually against Wycombe for Ipswich 2 years ago.
Right.
He hasn't lost a league game in 2 years. And Matt Bloomfield is very much pulling all these players in. So keeping Taylor and keeping Morley will be the 2 biggest. Keeping the 2 biggest bits for Wycombe. We might see a couple of extra outgoings. For example, there's some talks about Matt Butcher potentially departing. He only joined back in January, but he's been very much a bench player.
You think if Morley goes, you kind of want to keep him around, really, don't you?
That's what I was thinking too. So if Morley does go, Butcher can easily slot in. I mean, these are just
different type of player, though. Do you think, James, Matt Butcher to Aaron Morley?
Well, Aaron Morley is more defensive, but he can. Aaron Morley's more defensive. Butcher, in my opinion, is more box to box.
Yeah, well, I think Morley's more cultured than Butcher as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, they both have their strengths.
You're not going to have the name Butcher and be cultured. Come on, Gab. If you're called Butcher, you're only one type of player. Come on.
But one thing I have noticed with Wycombe this season and at the back end of last season is that they want players to have multiple jobs, which has which has helped a lot. You look at a player like Fred Onyedinma. I mean, when I think of Fred Onyedinma, I think of either a left or right winger. But now he can play as a right back, right wing back or left wing back. He's got so many defensive assets that if we come Marshall, he can easily slot in there. So we got Jack Grimmer, prime example as well. He's a right back by trade, but he can easily play in the right side of a three. Mm-hmm. So Josh Scowen, another example. Everyone looks at Scowen as this N'Golo Kante of League One, but in recent games prior to his injury, he was playing in a more advanced role, and the assists he was getting were Cesc Fabregas-esque. Honestly, like I don't know what I mean. The way Wycombe have evolved has been brilliant to see. So, and obviously there will be movement in January. There always is. I wouldn't be shocked if we did see a few exits. But Wycombe will have a list of players that they know that they're going to try and bring in. So I wouldn't panic too much yet.
Where are you, James, on this? Matt Bloomfield has said, tried to keep expectations down a little bit like I remember Ainsworth doing in the 14-15 player final season. Not quite to the same extent, but he's sort of saying it's about progress, it's about top 10 this season. And I think, obviously, the bar has been raised by what you've achieved in the first 20 games. So how do you kind of square, James, one point of view, which is this season is about progress and it's not important not to get carried away, with the point of view of we've actually put ourselves in a great position. It's looking like quite an open league where, top two is quite open. There's not like there's other dominant teams beyond Birmingham. How are you feeling about Wycombe's automatic promotion chances?
I mean, at this present moment in time, very positive, as it goes without saying. But as Matt Bloomfield has said, and even as yourself, Gab, it'll be very naive to get so far ahead with it. He said, enjoy the moment, but just take each game as it comes. Because as we know, football doesn't take any prisoners. Wycombe could be top today, but then they can lose against Bolton, Stevenage, and Charlton, and they can go into Exeter. They can go into the game at Exeter on New Year's Day being 4th or 5th. That's how much it can change. So Bloomfield is trying to, I wouldn't say weather the storm because it's a good thing, but he's just trying to keep everyone's expectations at a reasonable level of excitement, because it is exciting to see how Wycombe are playing and doing. But he doesn't want to get so far ahead that if it does all come crashing down, it's going to be this massive low of a low, and then you've got to rebuild even harder for next year. Because let's just say, if that does happen, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. As we saw 10 years ago, Wycombe got playoff final, lost to Southend, didn't get into the playoffs the following year in 2016. In fact, it was 2018 until they got promoted. Exactly, it can take a bit of time. So by all means, enjoy it. When you look at the teams in League One, Birmingham, Charlton, Bolton, former Premier League teams. You've got Wycombe that were non-league in the early 90s, and they're battling.
Huddersfield Town, thrice champions of English football.
There we go. I mean, Huddersfield were in the Premier League 7 years ago. Well, no, in 2019 they were relegated. So 5 years ago they were in the Premier League. So this is what I'm saying. For Wycombe, it's like, whoa, but at the same time, Wycombe don't want to be known as Little Wycombe anymore. They're trying their very
best.
Old
Wycombe.
Little old Wycombe, yeah.
It'll be Little Old Wycombe forever. I'm sorry, mate. It's just the way it is. That's football for you.
I think the best way to compare Wycombe at the moment, I know this is a bit of a reach, but you look at a club like Bournemouth. If you were to have said 20 years ago, Bournemouth, I mean, not even 20 years ago, 2009, they're on their knees. They're on the verge of going out the Football League. And then from 2009 to 2015, like 6 years, they're in the top flight. I know it's a bit of a stretch to compare it, but there are...
It is valid. Yeah, it is valid. I do see that. Yeah. Joe, I'm delighted that you're able to sort of think like that way as a Wycombe Wanderers fan, and despite a kind of modest history within English football as a non-league club up until 1994, and yet you're still able to be incredibly excited and ambitious for the future. So it just goes to show what an incredible job the people running the club have done in recent years, and a really exciting time ahead under Matt Bloomfield. James, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to catching up with you later in the season.
Thank you so much, guys. And if I don't speak to you, have a lovely Christmas. And
you too, mate. Yeah, Merry Christmas. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers. Delighted to be joined by Matt Shaw from the And He Takes That Chance podcast on Huddersfield Town. I knew you were waiting in the background. That's why I got the thrice champions in, mate.
I appreciate that, Gab. I always appreciate that.
Absolutely. Matt, how are you feeling about Huddersfield Town's promotion chances? Because other than this mad 4 or 5 game losing streak that you had in autumn, the form's been pretty consistent, I guess. And I'm just wondering, do you see yourselves in that automatic promotion mix?
I mean, we're 4th at the minute, aren't we? So we have to sort of class ourselves in that. But we're 4th without particularly playing very well at the moment, which either bodes very well or very poorly for the season going forward, because as you're aware, Gab, Michael Duff's teams tend to hit the straps in the second part of the season, and if we can improve like a Duff team does and really kick on in that second part and start playing well, then we've got every chance of pushing on. But I think the answer that most will give will with regards to this will be, it depends on the January window and what can be done, because Huddersfield have got some glaring gaps that need filling in. And if they can do it successfully next month, then there's no reason why we can't be up there challenging.
Talk to me about those glaring gaps then, Matt.
It's strikers, Gab. It's been strikers for a long time. I don't think we've signed a decent striker for the level that we're at since 2014 or something like that, which would be Nahki Wells. Yeah. We've brought Callum Marshall in on loan from West Ham. He's decent, but he's quite raw. He's not the tried and tested striker that's going to get you 20, 25 goals to help you propel yourself up the league. We do have plenty of strikers. There's just none of them are playing particularly well. Danny Ward's been here for 5 years, I think. He was here for 5 years before, but since he came back, and he's had one good season, I think, in 21-22, one excellent season, and he's a little bit too hot and cold to be relied upon for a promotion push. Bojan Radulovic came in January to a little bit of fanfare, but physically he's just not up to English football at the moment. He's any form of contact in it, and his head scrambles, and he's struggling. Josh Karoma's playing a little bit up front and a little bit wide. He's doing well. He's the top scorer. But it's midfield, Gab, where we're the best. David Kasumu's been excellent this season. Really good.
I like Kasumu.
Phenomenally good. He's more of a facilitator in that he just breaks everything up, and he chases, he harasses. He's quick, and then he lets Herbie Kane and Ben Wiles play. So he's very much the unsung hero in that team. And that midfield trio there of Wiles, Kasumu, and Kane is probably as good as I think anyone else is at maybe barring Birmingham in the league, and that's really what gives me hope that we can push on.
Ed, do you want to...
I raised my hand to scratch my head. I didn't know if you actually...
Oh, sorry, I thought you had...
No, I will go, actually. I was going to go... I completely agree on the striker situation. I had a bit of hope for Ladapo. Maybe that was a bit wrong to have, because I do carry quite decent memories of him in League One, and it just doesn't seem to have clicked. It feels a little bit like he was at Charlton, really, where it's just not hit the same as we probably wanted. I wanted to talk about defence if I could, because I don't think... I think Lee Nichols has been out for, I don't know what the exact period of time, so it's been largely, I think, Jacob Chapman playing more often in goal at this point. And the back in front, we know what Matty Pearson offers, we know what Mikael Helik's about. Lundvik, are we saying it feels right on that left-hand side? I think we saw him a bit more on the right-hand side, I seem to recall, when we saw him at Plymouth Argyle previously. Yeah,
he's doing okay. He's our ball-playing centre-back of the three, so he's, we're quite... solid and agricultural at times, I think, when you've got Matty Pearson. So he's doing really well, though. He's scoring goals from the back. Tom Lees is there as well. He's solid. You know what you get from these guys. I mean, we're going to Cambridge tomorrow night, and it's probably going to be a Pearson, Helik, and Lees back three. And you know exactly what you're going to get, and it's tough and compromising, and not a lot gets past them. Not a lot of pace either, but there's not a lot gets past them. Nigel Lundvik is just... He adds that little bit of ball playing ability out from the back. You mentioned Lee Nichols' injury. I mean, our injuries, what kind of holds me back from saying we're definitely top two promotion contenders is our injury situation. It is honestly chronic, and it has been for years. Lee Nichols is been out, but he's hopefully back. Chris Maxwell had a heart problem, who was our second choice keeper. So Jacob Chapman, who was the third choice, has ended up coming in and doing quite well. But everyone else is just injured at the minute, so we're almost struggling for a team tomorrow night. Do
you think Nichols is the best shot stopper? Sorry, Matt. Do you think Nichols is the best shot stopper in League One?
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else there is.
I'm carrying a bit of bias in this because, well, I'm thinking back. It was only 2 years ago. You guys were playing Forest in that playoff final where everyone was raving about Nichols, in particular his performances and that. And there's still some personnel in this squad that were part of that championship playoff final. I suppose we were hoping those guys were going to stand out again a division lower than they were previously.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Nichols in that season was phenomenally good. I like the Wigan goalkeeper, Gab. That's who I was thinking of. Tickle. I think he's outstanding. Yeah, he's an outstanding keeper. But I think if Lee Nichols is on form, he's the right side of 30 now. For a goalkeeper, he's coming into those sort of prime years, and I think probably would be the best goalkeeper in the league if he's fit and on form. So yeah, he's certainly a good stopper, and Jacob Chapman's done pretty well in his stead. So yeah, we're not too bad in that.
Where are we on the wing back situation, Matt? Because the last Duff team we really enjoyed League One was Barnsley, where his two wing backs were Nicky Cannon, who's technically brilliant, and Jordan Williams had that great burst of pace. I think for you guys, I think your left hand side is sort of, I think it's Josh Rothels or Jaheim Headley. I can never say that name. Is it Jaheim Headley?
Jaheim Headley. Yeah.
Jaheim Headley. And then the right hand side, I think Lasse Sørensen's just come back to compete with Ollie Turton. So I'm wondering, where have you got a clearer idea in your head about the right wing back combination to work on this Duff team?
I think Lasse Sørensen a bit classed as the number one. Unfortunately, he fell part of the injury curse that we've got, and he spent a couple of months out with a hamstring injury, and he came back for his first league game against Lincoln on Saturday and did his hamstring again. So we're hopeful that it's not too bad. He's going to be missing against Cambridge, but he might be okay after. I think it's more of a scar tissue issue rather than anything too bad.
Scar tissue issue.
A scar tissue issue. You can say that twice, Gab. But yeah, and on the left hand side, Mikael Miller was the left wing back. But again, he's injured as well. So it's I've got my violin out, Gab. It's been difficult with that, and it was so innocuous. Somebody fell into him, and he did his I think it's his MCL that he's done, and he's out till April. So Jaheim Headley's he's been given the opportunity, but he's just not done it, unfortunately. I imagine he'll be on his way in January, maybe to League Two. Brodie Spencer is the wild card one. Northern Ireland international. He plays left wing back for Northern Ireland, and he came on, I think, he right wing back or right back for us on Saturday, and he can play centre back at either wing back position. So he's quite a useful plug and play option that we've got. And Ollie Turton and Ruffles are more full backs than wing backs. They don't do the wing part particularly well.
So wing backs, I find them quite limiting, perhaps.
Yeah, they're good in terms of going backwards, defending. They're pretty solid. Going forward, not so much. But what we've seen recently is in game and against, I think it was Wigan, Huddersfield have changed to a 4-4-2 at times. And Josh Karoma's played as an orthodox left midfielder, and then Ollie Turton has just dropped into right back, which is a much more befitting position for him, and he played really well there and popped up with a winner as well against Wigan, which was good. So we've got flexibility in there, but like we say, guys, it's the striker situation at the minute, which is most vexing for us, because that's something we've been trying to fix for quite a long time. It's not easy as well.
I mean, it sounds like you're going to need the right 3 or 4 players to come into this squad for yourselves to come into that automatic promotion equation. And yet I'm kind of wondering, Matt, whether, given the volume of players in the squad, I think you've got about 35 first-team players there, are you going to need to offload players before you can actually bring new ones in?
Definitely. The squad's bloated. It's a good job it is at the minute with the injury situation, but it's definitely bloated. I think we'll see a number of players go out. Scott Hye's just gone out today. He's kind of on the periphery and the fringes. He's gone for a month to Halifax, so obviously we wish him all the best. So he's gone out. He'll be one of quite a few, I think. But there'll be several that would be moved on. I imagine a couple of the strikers that are on the fringes will probably make way if we can manage to bring someone in. And Joe Taylor is the name that always keeps popping up when we're looking for strikers. So yeah, we'll see. But again, you wonder how match fit he's going to be, because I think he's only played about 60 minutes in total for Luton since the start of the season. So whether he could hit the ground running or not is, or whether we get him first of all is another thing. But if we get him, will he hit the ground running? I don't know, but hopefully. And then we might see a different Huddersfield Town.
The way you're talking, Matt, it sounds like you're a little bit apprehensive about whether Huddersfield Town can come into that automatic promotion sort of equation. Do you feel you're going to be in the playoffs?
I think so. I mean, we don't do automatics. It's not a Huddersfield Town thing. I think the last time we were automatically promoted was 1983, and we've been promoted 4 times since via the playoffs. So it's not something we do is automatic promotion. But it's about time we did in truth, Gav. I'd be interested to see. I've never seen one, so it'd be really interesting to see one. But I think we can.
I
thought you saw the Herbert Chapman.
I wish I did. Yeah, I got the grey hairs. Yeah, but I mean, it's all ifs and buts. I could make pros and cons for every side in the top 6 as to why they could go up or why they could stay down. I think the safe at the minute, as it stands at the minute, I would see us as a top 6 team, but it's the changes that we need to get right. We need a new left wing back in January because of the Miller situation, and we need 1 or 2 strikers, and those 2 strikers then need to form a cohesive partnership really to get us somewhere. We need 1 striker who can score goals and 1 who can maybe stretch the opposition defenses and kind of work together, because none of the strikers we have tend to work together very well either. They kind of just stand up front and link with the midfield quite well, but not each other. Right. And it's been a really frustrating department for us as fans to watch. But like I say, Josh Karamo's done okay, but I think a lot of people don't have him down as a natural striker, but he's done okay.
Well, hopefully Huddersfield Town can stay in contention. Matt, it's been great to get your insight, and thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Have a good Christmas.
Yeah.
Ed, I know you've got to head off at 6 p.m. So I'm going to make sure that we're done by then. But you know what's coming. Can you give me your top 2 in League One?
I'm going to flip Birmingham and Wycombe around and go with those 2. I want to. I'm getting a little bit of Plymouth Argyle vibes with Wycombe, where they're just going to get written off. I am a little bit concerned about a recall of Morley, which I don't actually. I think Bolton would probably do more to screw over Wycombe than actually benefit themselves. I just have that thing. Just Morley's not going to find a place. It really depends on whether Bolton are going to stick with Everton this season, which you can never feel quite sure on, because they're a bit of an odd cod, Bolton, where they're actually not too far out the promotion conversation yet. I think there's a number of fans who actually want the manager gone. They're a bit fed up. Yeah. So I think Wycombe might fall to second, which is nothing to be ashamed about anyway, and enjoy it and get out of motion. My instinct is currently those 2. I was a bit curious about Huddersfield. I agree with him on the striker situation, worries me a little bit as well. And it kind of echoes the point really, where it feels like they kind of crept up the thought without people realising, and maybe now we're starting to think if they got in, then take the action next step.
Well, do you know what, Ed? I went into this podcast thinking Birmingham and Huddersfield just because of my faith in Michael Duff. But actually listening to both fans, I'm actually more excited now about Wycombe than I am Huddersfield. So I might flip that. But I think I agree with you. Listen, Ed, I know you've got to shoot off. So thanks so much for making time for us this evening to be co-host. Thanks so much to both our guests this evening as well. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate League One podcast. We'll see you again, not next week because it'll be Boxing Day, but very, very soon.
I'll go and do it for a laugh. Go on. Tune in when no one's watching.
Exactly, yeah.